Thank you. And thank you all for being here this afternoon and this morning. We've already had some amazing panels and papers. This just very quickly, you've got 4 women you're going to hear from whose stories are far more important than mine, but I just want to give you briefly, this is where this comes from. I truly believe we all have a baseball bio. I think every single one of us, I don't care if you've ever swung a bat, you've got a baseball story somewhere or another. Your life has led you to here. And most of us, it's because of a very long and sometimes convoluted path through baseball or a relationship with baseball. So we got the idea, let's start bringing people in. Let's talk to people. It doesn't have to be ball players or umpires or any particular role in baseball, because for all of us, baseball plays a role in our lives. And I think that's an important story to hear. So that's what this is about. What we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give just a brief introduction of all 4 of these women. Is Bethany on? I see the other 3. Bethany, are you here? Make yourself known. Anybody see Bethany? Okay, well, we'll get started and hopefully she'll pop in here.
She is on the call. I can see her name there.
Oh, okay. Bethany, let me see you. Put your video on. So what I'm going to do is introduce the 4 women briefly, and then I'm going to give each of them, 12 to 15 minutes, something like that, to tell us a little bit about their baseball story. There's Bethany. I knew you were there somewhere. And so then we should have time to have some questions, comments, and I'm just doing this in alphabetical order. So we'll kind of take it that way. First of all, Kara Blackstone. Kara's been involved in baseball, as she says, pretty much all of her life. It sounds familiar to most of us, I guess. She began professionally in working with the Albuquerque Isotopes. I saw them play one time, by the way, and then became a statistician for Major League Baseball's Cactus League, and eventually became the first female official scorekeeper for a Major League ball game in 2022. Jillian Geib began her career in baseball while at Boston University, studying broadcast journalism. She eventually moved away from broadcasting, though, to data collection, and finally to become the first female official scorer for the Colorado Rockies. She is currently senior coordinator of data operation for Major League Baseball. Allison Levin is a professor of sports communication at Webster University, and she is, as of very recently, also the vice president for SABR's board of directors. Her research, which if you haven't heard Allison give her a research presentation, please make sure you do, because they are fantastic. She focuses on modern baseball trends, which I think is a very interesting way of putting it. And finally, and last but certainly not least, Bethany Morlan. Bethany is the founder and head coach of the Little Peaches. She is also the founder of Little Peaches Girls Baseball Organization. This is a nonprofit focused in Rockford, Illinois, that provides a home base for girls in baseball around the northern Illinois region. So let's get started. Kara, let's start with you. If you don't mind, let's just go in that same order.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having myself, and Jillian, I'm sure, is just as excited. Yeah, you started out with my baseball career. I played softball for 14 years, started out in Little League, played in high school, and then eventually played in junior college, but grew up in, I would consider, a baseball family. My father played, my uncles played, my grandfather played, so we always had baseball on. One thing, growing up in Albuquerque, being kind of close to a big league team, we didn't have one specifically that I grew up watching. So people ask me all the time if what my favorite team is, and honestly, I don't have one. I'm just a fan of the game. I like to watch good baseball. So started out with the Albuquerque Isotopes. I was just in high school, needing a paycheck, and baseball was around the corner. So started out there and kind of got a good taste of what it was like. I joke with people all the time when I was in high school, I fell in love in physics class, loved doing physics. And I was like, you know what? I want to be a baseball statistician. Didn't even know that that existed in the world, but I just threw it out there. Baseball, math, let's put the two together. That's what I want to do. And funny enough, that's basically what I'm doing for my career, which is wild how that works out. So moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where I currently live, to play softball in college. And softball career didn't end up quite how I wanted it to, but everything happens for a reason. While I was here, or actually in my junior college, I started as the SID. So I was following the baseball team around and keeping score for them on Game Changer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's kind of how my data entry started, was through Game Changer, and learning the art of keeping score was through that collegiate team. Obviously, I've been around forever, but I never sat down and did the nitty gritty of keeping score. And that just kind of blossomed into where I'm at now. If you were to ask me when I was in 2007 working for the Isotopes, if I'd ever see myself in a big league press box keeping score in a division series or even the World Series, I would have told you, heck no, would never in a million years would I see that. But here we are. It's a cool thing to be a part of.
That's fantastic. Garrett, can you talk a little bit about, I mean, yours is a story where baseball really, that became your life, right? That became your profession. Thinking about it even beyond that, or aside from the fact that it's your profession, can you talk a little bit about that? What being in baseball meant to you more as when you were a kid, and you said your grandfather played and your father played, and can you talk a little bit about that connection?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll be blatantly honest. When I was a kid, I didn't start playing softball till I was in 8th grade. Baseball and softball didn't really like hit home, like this is where I wanted to be, until later in life. But just being around it, and my fondest memories are going to the ballpark. It used to be the Albuquerque Dukes, which was the AAA affiliate way back in the day. They tore that stadium down and then revamped it for the Albuquerque Isotopes. I remember going to the Dukes games with my parents, and obviously I wasn't really paying attention to what was happening on the field. I just remember the atmosphere and going to the concession stand and getting popcorn and ice cream. Like, that was my favorite part of it. Like I said, it never really dawned on me that this could be a career for me, and listening to earlier talks about seeing a woman on the field and saying, that's what I want to do. I didn't really have that moment. It just kind of thought like, oh, it'd be really cool to do that eventually. And then it just blossomed.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I think for all of us, that moment of going to the concession stand for, I was going to say a beer and a hot dog, but I get that, right? And
Yeah.
and it's what you're talking about is a little like what Kathy was talking about with fans and creating that, that family in the broadest sense of the word, and baseball is the core of that. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is and it takes us to different places, obviously. And for you, a major league career, so to speak. So
Definitely, yeah.
that is really cool. So let's go on then to number 2, only in alphabetical, not in our hearts. Jillian, would you like to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your baseball story and how that has affected you both growing up and professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having us. Really happy to be here and love all the work that you guys do. But yeah, I think very similar to Kara and to probably most of us on this call, my kind of trajectory in baseball really is born from just a passion and love for the game. Since I was very young, I'm born and raised in Denver. So I am a lifelong Rockies fan, unfortunately. But I grew up going to the games with my family, and it was honestly not probably your typical experience because we were very into it. We were the family that would go to the games and we would get the scorecard, so we'd have to be keeping score. We also, I just have very fond memories of this. We had this like over the ear radio headset. And we would bring that to the games, and not only would we be watching the games, we would be listening to the radio broadcast. So it was not just a, casual interest in the game for us. But yeah, I feel like, similarly to Kara, I just growing up loving baseball, honestly, would never in my wildest dreams have imagined that I would be able to one day say that I work for Major League Baseball. Like, just absolutely feels like out of this world, and a dream come true. But basically, I also, as a kid, decided that I really wanted to play baseball. So I had an older sister, she was into baseball. And so we both grew up playing. Unfortunately, again, I feel like this might have been a similar experience for some of y'all on this call, but pretty early on, I was told that baseball really wasn't for girls. So they shifted me over into softball. And, as much as I loved softball, I played softball all through high school. My sister played in college. I feel like that early, experience of being told baseball's not really for you kind of implanted in my brain a little bit. And so I really respect what Bethany is doing out there, and love, the fact that we're able to get girls back into baseball because we can play baseball. And I just really think that's so important. But anyways, shifted over into softball. So played softball my whole life. And then kind of when it came time to go to college, I thought, well, what are my skills? I love sports. I love baseball, and I guess I can write. So maybe I'll go into journalism. So decided to pursue sports journalism at Boston University. That kind of took a little bit of a turn when I decided to go into broadcasting. And yeah, similarly, I feel like my early experiences in broadcasting didn't necessarily make me feel confident in my knowledge of the game. It's a very competitive, field for women. At the time, it wasn't necessarily something that people thought we had the knowledge and skills necessary to be able to participate. And so, I don't know, I guess I just ultimately decided that I was more respected for my knowledge of the game from kind of a behind the scenes perspective. So I started working for Major League Baseball as a part-timer in 2012, just basically doing operational behind the scenes data collection for them. And basically for the next 10 years, served in various different roles during game day operations, gathering pitch information, pitch speed, pitch location data. That morphed into a new project that is now the Pitch Clock project. So I started working on that project a few years after joining Major League Baseball. And now, fast forward 10 years, I kind of worked my way through all the various different positions in data operations for Major League Baseball. And in the summer of 2021, one of the official scorers for the Rockies decided kind of suddenly to retire. And one of my bosses called me up and said, you know what, Jillian, you've kind of done it all in our department. So how do you feel about maybe trying out official scoring? And I was shocked, but elated. Obviously that's something I had done since I was an infant, essentially. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. I decided, heck yeah, I'm going to do it. Scored my first game in July 2021. At the time, there were no other female official scorers in Major League Baseball. There had been a few in history. Actually, the first one, her name was Eliza Green, but she had kind of disguised herself, went by E.G. Green, so as not to reveal that she was a female.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so at the time it was really awesome, great opportunity. And since then, we've had many other females join our ranks. I think it's super important. Obviously we do a great job, and I hope to keep the ball rolling. So yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. I wanted to say both Kara and Jillian, not only are you two women in baseball, which as we know is traditionally male, but you're both dealing with like math and stats and you know, I mean, you just kind of blew that stereotype out of the water, both of you. And so I'm wondering if has that made a difference? Has that been more difficult than, I don't know, if you had been in some other area of baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't, for lack of a better way to say it, you know, most of the official scorers and most of the people in our department, even in data operations, are males. And I'm sure Kara has had a similar experience, but especially when I first started official scoring, you know, I would have some of the PR people from various teams come over to me and ask, you know, do you know who the official scorer is tonight? And I would say it's me, and they would react very, you know, incredulously. They would be shocked. And then from that initial reaction, you could kind of tell that they were maybe viewing me in a different way. You know, they weren't necessarily respecting my calls, my decisions, my work in the same way that I feel like they might have done if I were one of my male coworkers. So it's definitely been an interesting adjustment, something that I've had to grow a bit of a thick skin, you know, and just realizing that I might not be fully respected initially. But all I have to do is keep doing my job as to the best of my ability. And that's all I really can do. That's all I can control, you know.
It's fabulous. What about you, Kara?
Yeah, I mean, I've had similar experiences as Jillian too. One thing I think that has helped is being in the press box for as long as we have as a part-time employee. So they might not know us as the role of the official scorer, but they recognize us because we've been around. So yeah, I think having the data background has definitely helped in that situation, but we're just paving the way. We're getting there.
Yeah, well, and you know, you two represent, as do the other two that we're going to get to here in just a minute, but you two represent some of what we talk about in the IWBC all the time, that the women have always been part of this game. We've always played it, umpired it, done all the things. And here we have you two to talk about how your own baseball story led you to these professional positions in scorekeeping and data collection. And it just is, it's fantastic to hear your stories. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions as we move forward. Next on our list is Allison, a new name, Allison. Take it away, both of you.
Yes, all of my personalities will now. I sort of approached this from not having what I consider to be a big position in baseball, just sort of how did I get to be a fan?
There you go.
Those of you who know me know that most of my work, as Kat mentioned, maybe a little weird, maybe a little on the modern trends, but
Not say it was weird.
it's all based in fandom and fandom theory. So when I was approached with this, I started to think about it. How did I become a fan? How did I get to where I am, where fandom is my obsession? And so I had to start with my mom. My mom grew up in the 1950s in New York City, and all she wanted to do was play stickball with the boys, and they would not let her play. Her mom dressed her up in a dress and told her she had to go be a girl, and that her brother and his friends could play stickball. So she went, and whenever there was a ladies' day at Yankee Stadium, which she lived very close to, she'd go to the games and she'd buy an obstructed seat view and hang her head around the foul pole so she could see the game. And became a huge fan of Mickey Mantle, and then realized her fandom was more baseball and Mickey Mantle. So when he retired, she became a free agent. and started shopping for teams. So she was in New York. She was a Mets fan for a little bit. Then when she was in grad school, she was a Tigers fan for a little bit. And then my parents moved to St. Louis in 1972, and she adopted the Cardinals. And so I was born and raised a Cardinals fan by my mom, and all of my fandom really stems from there. My first real baseball memory was being 8 years old, sitting on the floor of our den, watching the 1982 World Series and seeing the Cardinals win. And the Kool and the Gang celebration song was embedded in my head at that exact moment. And if I hear even the opening notes of it, I go to the 1982 World Series. So that's really where baseball started for me. And then, it grew from there. My family bought season tickets, even though my dad is not a baseball fan. My mom convinced him that she needed baseball tickets and that I needed baseball tickets, and said he should just come along and we teach him the game over the years. I'm happy to report that now after 50 years, he considers himself to be somewhat of a baseball fan. But baseball was everything. I remember getting a Cabbage Patch Kid doll when I was a little kid, and I hated it. Worst gift somebody could have given to me. And my mom got my grandmother to make the Cabbage Patch Kid Cardinals baseball uniforms. Then it became my favorite thing ever. All it took was putting a Cabbage Patch Kid in a Cardinals uniform, and I was set. I was ready to go. I was all about it. Like others talk about, I learned to score from my mom. It's an interesting moment where my mom thought I talked too much during the game, so she taught me how to score so I wouldn't talk. It doesn't sound so positive, but really it was sort of her
Funny.
for stay in your seat. Don't bother me with I want ice cream, I want soda, I want this. Here's a scorecard. You have to fill out the whole thing, so we're not going to move. Even to this day, there's like a moment in like the 5th inning where I'm like, I should get a snack, because that was the inning we were allowed to go get a snack. So she really ingrained that into us. But my baseball obsession really started in 1985 with the 1985 Cardinals. So 11 years old. I remember almost everything about that. Unfortunately, when Ozzie Smith hit his Go Crazy Folks home run, I was at Hebrew school, standing on the street, waiting to be picked up from Hebrew school. My ride was late because they stayed home to watch the end of the game. The guilt my mother felt from that was so hardcore. I have not missed a playoff game since then.
Oh
She
my
felt
God,
so
that's
bad
funny.
that she made me go to Hebrew school instead of the game, that we do not travel in October. We keep everything open. We are not missing playoff games. That is the rule that my mother passed down, and the rule that we will always abide by.
That is funny.
I was a kid who went to summer camp every year. My parents sent me away for 8 weeks. Every month, every week, my mom would send me a package that included Sports Illustrated, all the box scores from the week, and the standings. So I could hold camp out at camp on the roof of this building and lay everything out so all the baseball fans could see where their team stood, and we'd all go through the Sports Illustrated. And this is really how my fandom grew and just bloomed. And I was the kid, my friendships have grown out of baseball. My best friend in the world, I met my first day of college, standing in line in the cafeteria. He was standing in front of me, spewing absolute baseball nonsense. Like nothing he was saying was correct. But because he was a guy, everybody was standing around and was just like, yes, 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 you were right. And so under my breath, I corrected him. He turned around, was not happy with me, was convinced I was wrong. We went to a computer lab, looked it up. This is before we had phones. Went to a computer lab, looked it up. I was right. He was wrong. We're best friends to this day. For those
That's pretty
who
funny.
how I ended up being a Dodgers fan with a Cardinals fan, and a Cardinals fan, that's how it happened. That moment right there.
That's
With
great.
school, every project I got a chance to do about baseball, I did it about baseball. But like some of the people who said before, I never thought baseball could be a career for me. It didn't ever dawn on me that I could even work in sports. So I incorporated baseball in where I could, but I ended up going to law school, got my law degree, practiced corporate law. And as it sort of became just the doldrums of practicing corporate law, I realized one of the things that was missing was I was spending so many hours working, I wasn't even going to baseball games. I wasn't getting to enjoy what I enjoyed. And so that was part of the impetus that caused me to sort of move on from law. And then I taught in the high school level and I did a lot of stuff. And when I decided I wanted to get into college level and I wanted to get my master's degree, I said, I'm going to do it in 1 year. I'm not messing around with these 2 years. I've got so many degrees. I don't need, to mess around. So I started shopping myself to various master's degree programs in the St. Louis area in communications. And I would say, I want to do this in 1 year. And they would say, no, you can't. And I'd say, I want to do it in 1 year. So finally I found an advisor who said, well, how are you going to do it in 1 year? And I said, I'm going to write about baseball. And he said, that's going to get you through in 1 year? I'm like, yep. And so he agreed with me. He bought into it. Every paper I wrote that entire year was about baseball. My thesis was about baseball, but he's the reason I got into SABR because he saw my work and he said, we need to find some place for you to present. And so he started looking around and he found SABR. And my first presentation was quantitative at SABR Analytics. And then my next presentation was one of my weirder ones at the SABR annual convention. And I haven't missed presenting at a convention since then. But, it was just one of those things where SABR became a home for me. And as I finished my master's degree, I ran into somebody who I knew way back in the day, and he was starting a sports communication program. And he said, can you talk about things other than baseball? And I said, I think so. And he's like, do you want to come join me in this program?
You that question, Allison.
Yeah. Well, I still really only talk about baseball, but we pretend like I talk about a lot of sports. But he says to me, do you want to come join me in starting up this program? And I said, you mean I'm going to get to watch sports, call it work, and get paid for it? And he was like, yep. And I was like, okay, I'm in.
Yep.
So now I teach kids sports communication. We talk about sports all day. I get to teach what I like teaching, get to talk about what I love. And, I do research that interests me, and that is unique and different from what other people do, because that's where I think my fandom and my life story has taken me.
Yeah. Allison, it is a fantastic story. I've heard you talk about your mom before and the ways in which she sort of guided your love of baseball, but teaching you to keep score, to keep you still and in your seat. That's a good one. I like that. That's fantastic.
I've done it when I brought young kids to the game, like when we've had family friends come to the game with me. I have done that, the trick of like
That's great. That's fabulous. And to our next presenter to tell her baseball story. And this is a baseball story. I just have to be upfront and tell you that it's one that personally means a great deal to me when I hear it. And I am very proud of this young woman. Bethany, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I'm nervous. I've never done this before.
Don't be nervous. We're all family here.
But so I'm just gonna like read what I wrote and then just talk from my heart.
It's good.
Okay. So sorry. My baseball story started out like most. Chicago girl, in love with the game in my city. I got brushed over from baseball to softball. What broke my little heart wasn't adjusting to a bigger ball or pitching underhand. It was our team names. Boy teams got to wear Cubs or Sox uniforms, pretending to be Mark Grace or Bo Jackson as they watched them on TV. I was now wearing hot pink and representing the Pink Panthers. I could still be hardcore though, like my heroes in the movie A League of Their Own. They had a lame name, Peaches, but they showed me. That was my definition of a peach, those women. A peach was tough and kind, strong and committed. A peach to the public, yes, but never a pushover. Everything I wanted to be when I got big. Fate would have it that I grew up to actually live in Rockford, Illinois. 20 years later, I found myself a mama sitting with baby number 2, watching my firstborn on the ball field. I still got butterflies watching and smelling hot dogs and hearing the crack of the bat. And I desperately wanted to be out there with the boys. As mama bears with babies at ball games, we keep a 360-degree radar out for flying objects close by. So I noticed a toddler boy playing catch with his dad. He was decent. I watched. He let one get by him, and it rolled near a toddler girl who was delicately covering her baby doll, the blanket in this tiny purple stroller. I had no clue then that what the little girl did next would completely change my life. My younger years, we lived in North Lake by Chicago, Illinois. There was rough stuff like gangs and drugs and stuff, but there was diversity and there were successful and strong women all over the place, with voices like Oprah. My mom and my sisters had opinions and were comfortable sharing them. Some people might sound like it should be a given to be comfortable sharing your opinion, but at least where I've lived, it's a rarity. My parents were kind of liberal, free to be you and me kind of humans. My dad was a pastor and inclusive, and he raised us to be Chicago baseball fans, like not Cubs, not Sox, Chicago baseball. So that's liberal. If you've ever been to Chicago, like I like them both. But going to those games as a kid with my dad and my brother was like magic. Wrigley Field is the most magical place in the world for me. Like everything big that's happened in my life has somehow connected with baseball. So when I was in the middle of junior high, we moved from Chicago to a tiny, tiny town in Illinois. And it was like night and day. And it was like, I had to get used to how to act there. I had to get used to staying quiet. And I got good at it. You know, keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, be seen and not heard. And then as I got older and I saw this girl with this baseball on this field with her pink stroller or purple stroller, and I was like, gender norms much, right? And I thought to myself, like, I'm showing this girl what to do. I'm sitting here and I'm perpetuating this stereotype, and I am what she sees. And the girl picked up the ball and she looked at it. She looked at the boy and he was like, give it to me or something. I don't know. And she looked at it and she looked at her stroller. She looked at the dad. She looked at the ball and she threw it all the way to the dad. She just decided she's going to play. And that's when I decided I needed to do something, and I needed to step up and show not just my boys, but the girls in my community that baseball is hers too. That generation didn't have a league of their own. They didn't have those heroes that I had, that I could see. So a friend of mine and me started the Little Peaches. We teach baseball, but we teach strength, and we teach them to have a voice. I'm not very good at it right now. And it's introduced me to this whole family that I didn't know was here, and that I didn't know that I had. And that's what I want to give to the girls, is I want to give them this family, and to show them that they have a community, and it really has like nothing to do with baseball, but it does. But we've met so many people by Chicago, and Rachel Gansner in Warren Park just had the first all-girls league season. Good for her. So happy for her. But we really want to get a network and connection of these 10 and under girls who are, one in Aurora, one in St. Louis, one on this boys team. We want to have a network, and we want to have a connection, and maybe an annual thing for them to get together and know that they have a team, to know that they have a community, because 10 and under is where, girls get switched. Girls get insecure. I've seen it for years now. And I could tell you, they move with their friends, they move for opportunity. But if they had a network that they could see and be part of and come together with, at least annually at first, I think that's how these girls can grow and get funding they need, research they need. We don't really have any training for girl baseball players. There's studies for softball, boys baseball. Like, we don't know how to train girls playing baseball. There's like no research for it. There's no funding. But if we can get this network together and get these girls a home and connected, I think they can grow and I'm sorry, I'm really nervous.
You're doing great.
Sorry. Okay. I need to be like yelling on a ball field. This is really weird. So anyway, Little Peaches, we want them to have a community. We want to connect with other girls in the Midwest, and so they can all see each other, so they can all be there, so they can grow with each other and grow the sport. And yeah, these are ball boards. Every girl gets a game ball. They put their name on it, and they put what they're proud of themselves for, and they get to see it all season. I let my son play for me one year. He's on here, and his says feminist. So I was like, yes. But I don't.
Bethany, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want, I know you're not likely paying attention to the chat, but I hope
Oh, no,
you will.
I'm not sorry.
Well, no, you don't be sorry. I just want you to know that you should look back and see all of the ways in which people are cheering you on and talking about what an inspiration you are. As Ryan just said, we've witnessed her yelling on a baseball field, so we know she can do that. And creating that community for those little girls. I've watched them play. I've watched you work with them, the other coaches. And that's what all of us are here for, right? And one of the things that's so amazing about this panel, look at these four women. All of them have very distinctive baseball stories. There are common threads that run through all of them. A parent or both parents or a grandfather or someone teaches you the game, and it gives you something. It gives you a goal. It gives you a passion. It gives you a place in the world. And so this is why this panel is so important. Because we could do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year and still not duplicate all the amazing stories. And so we have plenty of time. And I want to make sure that people are able to ask questions of these four, but also if you have stories to share. But before we get to that, I just want to see, first of all, thank you, all four of you, for sharing your stories with us. And I may or may not see you if you raise your hand, so speak up if I don't see you. But please, if there are questions for any of these four, let me know. Any questions, comments?
I put one in the chat, but I'll ask it directly.
Okay. Yeah, if you
I'm-
guys don't mind, if you put something in the chat, it's hard for me to keep up with it. So by
Yeah,
all
okay.
means.
Okay, so Bethany, I was wondering, how is training girls to play baseball different than training boys?
Yeah, so especially going through the puberty time, bodies are different, muscles are different. There's
Okay.
there's a difference in mental mindset and flexibility. There's different muscle movement
Okay.
array that girls have more than boys. It's something that could possibly benefit a girl pitcher, you know,
Oh,
like
yeah.
sustainability
Okay.
of a girl. And there has been research of like endurance, muscle endurance of females, and that's proven to be more extended in females than males. And then recovery time as well for muscle tension and getting back to zero, being able to do it again and again and again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. That's great. Sometimes it's much more physical than we like to think, right? I mean, it's like, oh, we're all the same. We can all play, but sometimes it's not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
know,
think
Perry's commenting that girls are more coachable. They soak up information like sponges.
They are. They are. Can I comment on that?
Of course.
yeah.
So,
Please do.
so Kathy, if she's in here,
Yep.
somewhere,
Yeah.
she did a baseball camp with me where IWBC they put on a women in baseball camp here in Rockford, and that's kind of how I met everybody. And these major league dudes and Justine Siegel was there, and like they kicked our butts for a week. And these major league baseball coaches were like, this is insane. This is like so awesome. Like girls just listen. They just like do what you tell them. Like it's like they don't fight it. And it's true because I've coached both, and like girls, they do what they're told, but they don't have like that ego where it's like, nope, I'm right. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna do better next time. But you're totally.
sister would say if she were alive that I must have missed out on that I rarely did what I was told. So I think that, you know, there may be some exceptions. Other questions, comments for any of the four?
Leslie has a question. Strangest play you've seen as an official score?
Ah,
Jillian touched on it. I watch so
Mhm.
much baseball. I don't have one specifically that stands out as me as a scorer. But yeah, there's definitely been some wild ones. Jillian, you want to talk about yours?
Yeah, I just I mentioned it in the chat, but my very first game, I got to see an ump get hit by a batted ball. Not necessarily like the strangest of plays, but it was definitely just obviously a little bit of a unique one, and fun to score, and really started my career with a bang there. I also actually got very close to seeing a no-hitter, but unfortunately got broken up in the 9th inning. So
I guess talking about that, my first game ever, my major league debut as official score was a no-hitter through 7. And that was hilarious in a way that I had no idea it was happening. I was in such awe of everything around me that it didn't hit me until after the game when I was writing the totals and stuff. I was like, oh my goodness, we almost saw double history today.
honestly, that's ideal though, because then you get nervous, right? If you know, and then you know
Absolutely.
you could be the difference maker. So that's ideal, Kara.
that's great. That's great. Other questions? And thank you, Marlene, for calling them out for me. Oh, go ahead, Bethany.
And I wanted to say about the Jillian and Kara, I don't know how you do what you do, because we've had leagues where there are no umps, and it's, you know, honor system, and being a girls team with a girl coach against boy teams with boy coaches, it's like they make the call and you don't fight it. You like anything you say that's not you are correct is noise. And I don't know how you guys do it. And you make the call and you put your stamp on it, and God bless, because it's hard.
Yeah.
It is very hard, but we do have the grace of MLB on our back, you know, so we say it with confidence in the microphone. And if anybody has anything different to say, we can say, call them, call the commissioner, talk to them.
Wish we could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I admire what you're doing too. It's hard.
Yeah.
Questions are coming. Amanda, is that your little yellow hand up?
That is, yeah. I had a comment from Bethany, but I also wanted to say that this has been really amazing so far. I'm lucky enough that I get to work with Jillian and Kara in data operations with them for MLB. My role is slightly weirder and different and much more behind the scenes. But I wanted to say to Bethany, hearing you talk about the work that you're doing just really made me think how much little girl me growing up wished that there had been something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I grew up in a really small town in Ontario in hockey country. So being a baseball fan and a baseball lover was unique. But the work that you're doing, and I think the work that everybody is doing and the passion that everybody has, you know, that's attending this conference this weekend, really gives me hope that there's going to be a day in the future where all of the little girls who love baseball, softball, in whatever way they come to it and whatever way that they interact with it, that they're not going to realize how much they wish they had a network and a support system, and how lonely it can be, because it's not going to be for them.
Right.
And so I wanted to say that in general to everybody, but Bethany, I wanted to say that to you because I think it's such an amazing thing that you're doing, that, you know, those little girls, some of them might look back and realize it, how special and incredible it is of what you're doing, but some of them might not. And that in and of itself is incredible, because, you know, I think back again when I was little that wouldn't have been the reality. So I really wanted to make a point to say that to you, but also say that to everybody else that has spoken and attended this weekend so far. Because yeah, being in a small town in Ontario, it got really lonely growing up as a baseball person. So this has been a lot of fun for adult me, but also little girl me as well.
Thank you, Amanda. I think that is the refrain from whether it's this panel or all the other panels. Kathy talking about fans, Allison talking about the wacky way that she looks at fandom in baseball. It's really not that wacky, but the thing is, it's all of it. And look at these faces, male and female. Look at these faces. These are people who this is the baseball family we all wrap ourselves in. And that's a truly remarkable thing for all of us. Other questions, comments? We have plenty of time, and if you don't have questions or comments, is there someone who would like to share their particular baseball story?
Can I share screen on this? I've never done it before, but I want to share a video if I could.
I am not sure. That is a question for Kathy. Kathy, are you
Disabled?
Yes, I am. Hold on.
okay? Don't ask me a technical question, Bethany. Have fun, Amy.
So there was a time Kat was at a game and we had to call the police because people were fighting so much. It was rough.
Yes,
While
I
we're
remember it.
working on that, I was wondering if Allison would be willing to share a little bit about some of the interesting topics that you do for research. Because I think people would be fascinated because you just sort of alluded to, but you do some really interesting things, and I think people would be fascinated to hear a little bit.
Yeah,
Good question, Leslie.
I can talk about some of what I've researched. There's a lot. The project that most people remember the most is I took the walk-up music for every player in Major League Baseball over a season and then analyzed it in segments based on, you know, what position they were in, what country of origin they were from, their age group, and sort of did a bunch of this cross-sectional analysis to try to understand, you know, how music is selected and why it's selected. And we only used the player selected music so we could try to understand what was going on there. I've looked at before the hazing rules changed in baseball, I looked at hazing in the clubhouse and how that affects the queer community and the representation that it was showing about acceptance of LGBTQ plus people in baseball fandom. My most recent project is looked at wives and girlfriends of professional athletes, baseball players, and the really challenging job that it is. It may seem very, you know, interesting and prestigious and a great opportunity, but just all of the hardship that really goes along with it and how they're reclaiming their control in the relationship through becoming social media influencers. I've looked at fandom on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram. You name a social media platform, I probably have done a project on it. But those are some of the ones that people know me the best for, I think.
Yeah, and let me just say before we watch this video, that, you know, Allison's path may have started like so many others, but Allison, your influence is widespread as well, and I hope you take that and that you're proud of it. I mean, you're the vice president of SABR. Of course, Leslie Heaphy was the former vice president of SABR, but also in using social media platforms, in using different ways of talking about and analyzing baseball, you bring in a whole group of people to the game that, you know, might not otherwise be interested. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So are we, Kathy and Bethany, are we ready to rock and roll?
Yes.
Yeah? Can you see a screen?
Yep,
Yes.
Does it look like my screen?
yep. It looks like your Facebook.
Guys, I'm a ball player. I'm not good at this stuff. But okay, so I just wanted to show a little something here. This, can you see my little hand?
Yep, yep.
Okay. So this got 42,000 plays, right? Okay.
Let's do it.
But I want you to see there's only like not okay. Hang on. 71 likes. So I think a lot of people watch that and they hear noise.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to point out is strong girls are often threatening. And we're just trying to teach them to use their voice and use their strength and tell their own story. Don't let anybody tell it for you. And then I have another reel that's Allison, I need you. I need you for all of this. But it's just, can you guys see it? Probably not. Can you see it? So just wanted to share that. It's all the things like I can't say with my voice.
So much. And well said, however you have to communicate it. So we have about maybe 10 minutes, maybe a little less.
Kat, I wondered if Jillian and Carrick might talk a little bit about your jobs as official scorers, right? Lots of us are, and if you didn't see the chat, all the people talk about how they love to go to games and they scored games and that's what everybody does. But thinking about actually doing it as a job, how did you get there? How do people think about, because that's not one that we often think about, see, because as you pointed out, it's very much behind the scenes, and yet that's something that so many love to do. And I would imagine it's something that a lot of people never thought about and didn't realize. So I'm curious how you got to what you would say to people about that as a possibility.
Jillian, you want to?
Yeah, sorry, I was like, I don't know who wants to start this. I think we both have different paths that we took. And again, it's not, it really is not ever something that where I was like, I want to be an official scorer. Like, and then I just did it. Honestly, it just came about after, basically 10 years of working games, and kind of working my way up there. But a really cool thing that our boss has started doing, I don't know if he's going to do another round of this, but in an effort to make the group of scorers more diverse, our boss did something called Official Scores University, I think is what it was called. Kara, correct me. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that if you love baseball and you know baseball really well, you also do have to take a quiz to become a scorer. Your baseball knowledge has to be up there, but you know, it's just something that if you have seen enough games, if you know the sport really well, there are opportunities out there. I think our boss is trying to expand kind of the pool of potential scorers, and I would like to think that there will be more opportunities for women to get involved in even just like the next few years. But yeah, Kara can speak more to that as well.
Yeah, we need to follow up with him to see if he's going to continue. He got extremely busy this year with all of the appeals. We're up to like 400 and some with the appeals, but definitely that university helped me and my knowledge, you know, watching baseball for 10 plus years, but there's nitty gritty things that you don't even think of, like, oh, that's how you do that. To answer Maureen's question, yes, he is male and white. There is a lot, and they're definitely working on the diversity of that for sure. But yeah, what Jillian said, if you have an interest in it, reach out to myself or Jillian, and we can't promise anything, but we can help guide along to the best that we can.
Yeah, and also just like any job, Major League Baseball does have like a career page, you know, where job postings are available, and there are occasionally openings in different markets for jobs as in our department of data operations and as official scorers specifically. And as Kara mentioned, like her background, she started with the Arizona Fall League. And you know, like spring training, little smaller, I guess leagues like that are a great way to start getting involved. I know that we also staff people at AAA ballparks as well. So if you have a AAA ballpark near you, you could even just reach out to that team and ask if they're looking for official scorers. Just kind of like throwing your name out there, I would say, working as many positions in baseball as you possibly can, I think can never hurt. So being around the ballpark, all
That's
the things.
great. Yeah. That's great. You know, Jillian and Kara, maybe we need to set up some sort of I don't know, little educational program run by the two of you, sponsored by us. I could see there'd be a lot of interest there in scoring. You know, we could put you all to work. And we've got people in the chat right now saying, I'm in.
Kara and I, we also, in our capacity, also in data operations, we watch literally, you know, hundreds of baseball games, and I'm sure this applies for both of us, but we see all kinds of crazy plays, even just like on a nightly basis. So it's something that we would be able to, you know, pull out a couple of examples of weird plays and talk through just how they would be scored.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Jillian did bring up, sorry to interrupt you. She brought up a great point. As far as the minor leagues to become an official scorer, the minor league, the teams hire their official scorers. So it's different than Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball, in a way, they own us. They hire the Major League official scorers, but the minor league teams pay for their own official scorers. So if you have a minor league team close to you, reach out to them, and then that's how you can grow.
Yep, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think you've inspired a number of people on here to look into scoring positions. Be careful. There are going to be people knocking on your door.
Come on in. We want you.
We welcome it. We welcome it.
That's awesome. So we have about 5 minutes. Other questions or any other baseball bios anybody wants to share? Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Thank you. This is a dad story, as most of the baseball stories. Well, although I have mom baseball stories also, but my father was not a good communicator about the things you should or should not do. He kind of got tongue-tied around that stuff, but he used baseball always metaphorically. So my life lessons came from baseball, basically. And one of those happened at Fenway Park, 1964, I think. It was one of the first year Kari Skremski was on the team. The Red Sox were, I don't even know if they hit 500 ever. They would have low fan attendance at the games. So Fenway Park felt like a neighborhood park. You could go in, you paid your 50 cents to get into the bleachers. You hung out the bleachers for a little while. And then my father would say, okay, you kids, you can go down there, find yourself a seat at and the guards would turn the other way, and we could get into the grandstands and so on. So anyway, one game we went to, it was more crowded, and we were in the bleachers, and Dick Stewart was playing first base. And Dick Stewart was known for his hitting and his record errors. And I have a cousin who had Down syndrome, and he was 7 years older than I was. I was the eldest of three. And every August, we went to a Red Sox game, took my cousin with us, who lived with us that summer. And he was leaving at the end of the summer to go back to his residential school. So it was kind of like a say goodbye. So we went into the game, we sat all in a row, and my cousin convinced himself that Dick Stewart was going to win. He was going to hit more than 60 home runs. And the Red Sox were going to be the holder of the 60 home run champ record again, or first time. So he had a loud, heavy voice. He was clearly, his physical appearance was of a man with, or a young man with Down syndrome. And we were sitting about 3 or 4 rows away from some teenagers. And I was used to it. Kids made fun of my cousin all the time. My cousin was not somebody that, except for the school year during Monday through Friday, he lived with his family. We spent time with him. He was around us all the time. We did not consider him to be someone that had to be, put away, as people did back in those years. So we're sitting in there, and Dick Stewart comes up to bat, and he starts with his voice saying, Uncle Babe, he's going to hit a home run. He's going to hit a home run. And my father said to him, Stephen, if Dick Stewart hits a home run tonight, I'll catch that ball for you. So I was about 13, maybe 12. And I thought, how could he possibly say that? What if he hits a home run to left field? We're in right center. What if he doesn't catch it? How can he say something like that? So I had this, kind of innings of anxiety waiting for this home run to come or not come. So Dick Stewart comes up to bat, the litany starts, the kids in front kept turning around and laughing at my cousin. My father ignored them. Dick Stewart comes to bat. My dad played baseball. I swear it was like crack, and my dad was on his feet, jumped across the front seats of the bleachers in those days had backs, jumped across the back of the seats, hit the concrete in the aisle between the 2 sections, put out his hand and caught the home run. Comes back, hands it to my cousin, who stands up with all the joy in the world, showing it to everybody in the bleachers. Well, the guys in front just were awed. Everybody applauded my cousin. And, we all sat down to watch the rest of the game. But I realized that my dad was very much aware of what those boys were doing to my cousin, and his extra effort to catch the ball was to show them, and as well as do something for my cousin, do something for us kids. But it was to show a lack of difference, that you don't treat people who may not talk like you or look like you or have your same, what we call the standard abilities, because my cousin had emotional capacities that far outreached what many of us can feel and express.
Amazing story, Karen. I can't imagine ending this panel with any better story than that one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Well,
And
thank you
it
for letting me
really-
share it.
Of course, it really points to what we've been talking about, and that is that baseball is not just a game. It is far bigger than that. And so thank you to all of you for sharing your stories and for all the wonderful questions.